11, verses 1 through 2, 4 through 6, and 18 through 23. Numbers 11. The people griped about life in the wilderness, how hard they felt things were for them, and these evil complaints came up to the ears of the Eternal One. He was furious about this ingratitude, faithlessness, and lack of vision. His anger was kindled, and his fire raged among them and devoured some of the camp's perimeter. The people of Israel cried out and ran to Moses and begged him to do something. Moses did. He prayed to the Eternal One, and the flames settled down. A contingent of Israelites had a strong craving for different food, and the Israelites started complaining again. The Israelites said, "Who will give us meat to eat? Remember in Egypt when we could eat whatever amount of fish we wanted, or even the abundant cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But this can hardly be called food at all. Our appetites have dried up. All we ever have to look at is manna, manna, manna." The Eternal One said to Moses, "Purify yourself for what will happen tomorrow. You will eat meat because you have cried to me, saying, 'If only someone would give us meat to eat.' We were content back in Egypt. The Eternal will indeed give you meat, and you shall eat it. You'll be eating meat not just one day, or 2, or 5, or 10, or 20, but every single day for an entire month. Meat, meat, and more meat. You'll eat meat until it comes out of your noses, and you can't stand it anymore. For you've rejected me, who was with you, by asking why you left Egypt." Moses said, "There are 600,000 people walking with me here. You say that you're going to give them heaps of meat for an entire month? Think of the logistics. Are there really enough sheep and cattle traveling with us to slaughter, or enough fish in the sea, for that matter, to provide such a supply?" The Eternal One said, "Do you doubt me? Do you question my power that I can do what I've said? Just watch. You'll see what happens."
And continuing on in Philippians chapter 2, starting verse 1. "So now, my beloved, obey as you've always done, not only when I'm with you, but even more so when I can't be. You continue to work out your salvation with great fear and trembling, because God is energizing you so that you will desire to do what always pleases Him. Do all things without complaining or bickering with each other, so that you will be found innocent and blameless. You're God's children, called to live without a single stain on your reputations among this perverted and crooked generation. Shine like stars across the land. Cling to the word of life, so that on the day of judgment, when the Anointed One returns, I may have reason to rejoice, because it will be plain that I didn't turn from His mission, nor did I work in vain. Even if my lifeblood is to be poured out like wine as a sacrifice of your faith, I have great reason to celebrate with all of you. For the same reason, you can be glad and celebrate with me." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
This is my story. This is your story. But most of all, this is the greatest story ever told. This is the story of God. Many of you have been reading the story. A compilation, a gathering of important documents, important details, important stories from the library that we know as the Bible. The story. Now, we know that there are multiple parts to the story, right? There are several different parts. We know that there is an upper story. That's where God is telling telling a grand narrative. What is God doing in all of history and humanity? How is He working it all together? What's the grand master plan? Or should I say the master's grand plan? He sees the bird's eye view. He sees the bigger picture in and around and outside of time. So what is it that God is doing? The Bible tells us that He works things together for the good. But sometimes it's hard to see that. We read through the Bible, which is a collection of lower stories, history, tales of individuals, people who actually lived on this planet and breathed oxygen in real places. Their lives, their circumstances, their situations, what happened? That's what we want to know, of course. And then there's the third part, which is our story, my story, your story. Because while it's incredibly important to have an idea, to catch a glimpse of what God is doing, that's the goal. While it's also incredibly important to know all the details about the lower story, the characters, the stories, the families in Scripture, what they did, where they traveled, where they went, how they lived. It doesn't change us, it doesn't shape us, until we let their stories become ours. Until we connect the dots, till we see what it actually means, how it actually applies to us. When we put flesh and blood on these theological truths that I seem to spout off all the time. Last week, we met a man by the name of Moses. Everybody say Moses. Moses. Is everybody with it? Yeah. Moses. We learned a lot of things about Moses. Moses, as you know, was trying to lead a group of about 3 million people. Everybody say 3 million. 3 million. That is a lot of people. A lot of mouths to feed, right? A lot of complaints. But I'll get into that later. 3 million people. And so last week we learned we've got to have some sort of structure, right? If you've ever taught in Sunday school, you know a class of 10 junior hires needs structure. So imagine 3 million people. You got to have some rules. Got to have some sort of skeleton, some sort of structure. And so Moses is called up onto the mountain, right? And he's given what are known as the 10 Commandments. Everybody say 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments. Right. And he goes up on the mountain, he gets these 10 Commandments, these rules. But as we know, rules without relationship lead to rebellion, right? And so Moses is up there, separated from the people. He and God are having a little chat, and the people start breaking all the rules, right? Within the first 40 days, they've broken the first 2 commandments. It could have happened right at the same time that God was saying, "Thou shalt not." We don't know. And so the people said, "We don't need the rules, man. We just need love, sweet love. So we're just going to have a relationship. We're just going to get along." But as we learned last week, relationship without rules leads to rupture, right? Broken hearts. It doesn't always fix things. And God, in our text from last week, said, if you obey my commands and keep my covenant, my relationship with you, my promises, then we can be together. I will be your God, you will be my people. And we learned last week that rules without rules, together with relationship, leads to reunion. Everybody say reunion? Reunion. Yeah, cake and punch. All right. And we ended with the question, is God here? Remember, once they got everything settled, once people were disciplined and all sorts of craziness ensued, God said, I want you to build me a house. Because there's got to be rules, there's got to be a place for me to stay. I want you to build me a place where I can dwell, where people can look and know that I am here. And we ended with that question, is God here? And that's an easy question for us to answer. But some of us have spiritual ADD, right? We do. We say, well, God might be here, but what's over there? God might be right here, but what's out there? God, I appreciate what you're doing right here, and that was impressive, Red Sea, that was cool, but look at that. Can I have some of that? God might be here, But what's over there? We constantly go looking, right? If you're interested, if you have your copy of the story, it will be in chapter 6. If you have a Bible, I will give you a text, except here's the thing. Chapter 6 covers texts from Exodus through Deuteronomy. So turn to the Old Testament. If we are always searching for what we don't have, we will never find it. If we are always searching for what we don't have, we will never find it. The people of God, the people who experienced the 10 plagues in Egypt, the people who experienced the Red Sea, the people who have been led by a cloud and a towering inferno for the last year, the people who experienced God's presence, do an awful lot of complaining, right? They complain about all sorts of things. In fact, I went through chapter 6 because I didn't have enough time to read Exodus through Deuteronomy, so I just read through chapter 6 to look at all the times that the people complain about something, and here they are. They complain about hardships. Life's too hard. They complain, God, we need other food. Bob read a little bit about that. What? Miraculous food that just shows up on the ground every morning and then a double portion shows up on Saturday morning? That's not good enough, God. I need meat. I can understand that. They complain they don't have enough. And nobody's immune from this, right? Everybody wanders. Everybody complains. Even Aaron, everybody say Aaron. Aaron. And Miriam, everybody say Miriam. Miriam. Those are Moses' brother and sister. They start complaining. How come Moses gets all the attention? How many people had heard of Aaron and Miriam before today? Yeah, just a few of us. How come Moses gets all the attention? Weren't we called by God too? And God kind of smacks him on the wrist. Apparently he smacks Miriam kind of hard because she gets leprosy. They complain. They end up sending a scouting team to the promised land, the place where God has said, I will be with you, right? I delivered you from Egypt, the most powerful nation in the world. I will deliver you to this promised land. Remember towering inferno? Yeah, okay. They send a scouting team ahead. They come back. They say, oh, this looks good, but there are, some kind of big guys there. And everybody freaks out. Oh, big guys? We can't do it. They're big. They're strong. We're scared. They complain, God, we can't do it, they're too strong. And then, when their leaders say, no, we can do it, they say, we need different leaders. We need leaders who complain like we do. They even get to a point where it says they're getting ready to stone them. To stone their leaders because they disagree. Imagine that. Disagree with a leader. They complain because they don't have any water. The video clip showed Moses striking a rock. But remember, God said, speak to the rock and it will pour forth water. And I think I demonstrated last week, Moses was probably a little upset. He had an anger problem. So by all this point, he's like, give me water. He smacks the rock and gushes forward. They complain about impatience. In Numbers 25, their own wives, their women aren't good enough, and so they start having sex with other women outside of the country. Other nations, other religions. We need new wives. We need new. And then the coup de grace. With new wives comes new gods. And, well, you want to make them happy, so let's worship their gods. Always looking over the fence. Always looking for that greener grass. Always looking for the better thing, right? And then when we get the better thing, it's not quite as good as we hoped it was, not quite as good as we thought it was, so we start looking for the better thing, better thing. We're always searching for what we don't have. We will never find it. The whole generation faces the consequences of this grumbling. Numbers chapter 14, if you have a Bible. Numbers 14, verse 26. Numbers 14:26 says this. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "How long will this wicked community grumble against me? I've heard the complaints of these grumbling Israelites. So tell them, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very thing that I heard you say. In this wilderness your bodies will fall. Every one of you 20 years old or more who is counted in the census and who has grumbled against me." Grumble, grumble, grumble. Grumble, grumble. God wants to give you what you want, right? And these people keep saying, "Why did you bring us out here to die? We're going to die in the wilderness. Moses, why did you bring us here to die?" And after all of these times, all this great big thing, a year or more, God delivers them miraculously, provides for them miraculously, and they grumble, grumble, grumble. God says, "Okay, you want to die in the wilderness? Have at it. Have at it." Now, real quick side note, lower story thing, historical fun fact. Everybody say fun fact?
Fun fact.
You know we love them. If you've heard of this story before, you've probably heard that every Israelite within that first generation dies, right? But that's not what it says. It says every one of you, 20 years old or more, who was counted in the census. The census was taken to find out how many men were of age who could fight. 20 years or more. So God is essentially wiping out the army of this nation. And we think, oh, that's not too bad. You know. No, it affects everybody. If you have no army, how are you going to defend yourself? How are you going to take a new nation of big, strong, scary guys? If all of your military men who are 20 years or older, everybody who can fight, is dead, that affects the family too, right? Grumble, grumble, grumble. Not one of you will enter the land I swore with uplifted hand to make your home, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. Those two guys were the ones in the scouting party that said, "Hey, we can do this. It's real nice over there. God is going to take care of it." Everybody else said, "Nah, we can't do it. Too scary." Everyone wanders. Everybody say that? Everyone wanders?
Everyone wanders.
How many people count as everyone? Everyone wanders, right? Everybody's eyes drift the fence. Right? At some point or another, in some part of our lives, we've all gone wrong. I sure would like to have that instead of this. This that has been given is good, but I wish it were like that. A guy by the name of Blaise Pascal, mathematician, philosopher, says that there is a God-shaped hole in the heart of every person, and it can never be filled by any created thing. There's a God-shaped hole in the heart of every person, and it can never be filled with any creative thing. Any creative thing. We have this void in our lives, and God says, "Well, let me fill it," and we say, "Let me try this first. Oh, that didn't work. I guess I need more. Oh, that didn't work. Well, let me try this thing. Well, that didn't work. Let me have some more of that." We try and fill this void in our lives that only God can fill with all sorts of stuff. And then when it doesn't fill our hearts, our lives, it doesn't satisfy our desires, then we complain about it. God, why don't I have this? God, why don't I have that? God, how come they have that and I don't have that? God, give me this. We do this all the time. We are a people of complaint. We've become complaint-ocentric instead of Christ-ocentric. Focus more on our complaints than the cross. We do it all the time. And people notice. Right? People notice. God-shaped hole in the heart of every person, and it can never be filled by any creative thing. So the question, of course, is where are you the way I want it. Where are you wandering? Where is that hole that you're trying to fill? This morning we're going to do something a little different. I have somebody who's going to come on stage that is going to speak for just a bit about some things. He's a friend of mine, funny guy, humble guy, talented individual, and was gracious and willing enough to share his testimony with us this morning. So if you would, please welcome to the stage Mr. Brent Mitchell.
Just in case the magic is in the water, I want to go with you.
All right. That's brilliant.
Absolutely nice.
I think this will do me. So, in case you're wondering, we're just going to have a chat. So feel free to be observers. Brent, so your name is Brent, right? President. Okay. He's also a bit of a smart aleck sometimes. But we all are. So, you've had a very interesting life up to this point. Do you care to share how old you are?
I was 41 on September 21st, which makes me 42, because my birthday was September 27th.
How much time do we have? So you're 42 years old, which is almost twice as old as me. So, always. So, take us back from the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your journey growing up as a young man.
I was raised in a Lutheran church, Marseilles, Illinois. Very involved in the church growing up. My folks were very involved. So we were always there. We were acolytes. We were in the children's choir, Sunday school, adult choir once we got old enough, confirmation. I mean, it was just what we did. It was our family's thing. So even through that, I found that I was already searching, But I kind of dove into the church and thought, this is what we do, so this is what I'm supposed to do, and this will meet all my needs. And I got made fun of a lot in grade school for taking that stand. Everybody knew I was Mr. Perfect, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, whatever they would say. That being made fun of would cause me to isolate. I never talked to anybody about it. I never shared. I really never took it to God other than perhaps in anger. Why, like the children of Israel, why are you doing this to me? Why are you allowing this to happen to me when I'm going to church and doing all these things? Early on in high school, I went to a Christian concert and kind of made a personal commitment to follow Christ, even beyond my family heritage of following Christ. Because it's one thing to be a member of a church, because that's your family heritage. It's another thing to take that personally. And it was shortly after confirmation, which in the Lutheran church, that was 8th grade, I made this commitment. I want to surrender to you and whatever you have for me. Well, that brought on more making fun of in school, and I stood out even more because I took stands in high school against drugs, against drinking, against all these things, and I wasn't afraid to speak out against that. And that doesn't sit too well with your classmates. So I remember somehow the Ottawa Daily Times caught wind of the stand I was taking. And they came and interviewed me, and I didn't know what this was about until a full-page spread about my testimony titled, "Sunday the Teen, A Mother's Dream." That really works me out. They picture me just abused after that at the high school. And so for that stand I took, kept going, but I isolated. I kept it all in. I didn't share the pain. And it's brewing, building up inside, this pain, this rejection, this questioning God, if I'm doing this for you, why all of this? I began to get phone calls based on that article for speaking engagements as a junior and a senior in high school to go out and speak to youth groups of different various denominations throughout the South County. And I would go out and share my story, why I'm taking this stand, and you can take this stand too, there's a good life, and it was going good. Had kind of this guy in Ottawa that just adopted me. He was like a manager. He would line up these speaking engagements. And we were due to speak in Ottawa in January. It was my senior year. And the night before the speaking engagement, a friend of mine, who I thought was a friend from age 4 on, said, hey, I threw out a bottle of whiskey or something out in the ditch. It's on a snowbank down the road from your house. If you want it, grab it. He knew my stand. He told me that. I stopped and picked it up. Interesting. So I go and speak at this engagement as a senior in high school. And the next night I opened that bottle. No idea why. From the beginning, from senior year of high school on, it was drinking to the excess. It wasn't taste this, taste that. It was, this will fill your need. This will be all that pain that you held inside from rejection. This will fix it. It didn't work. And it brought shame, more pain. So it wasn't long after that, I was a quick learner back then. 6-8 months later, I renewed that commitment. So enough of this. I'm headed to Christian college, got my life ahead of me, and I called some friends of mine who was actually a teacher and said, just help me get back on the right track. And renewed that commitment, headed off to college, and dabbled a little bit during college, with here and there drinking, and every time again it wasn't a little. So there was a problem. It never met the need, ever. Run back to, I got really involved in church in college, really involved. Became on staff at a church, Christian college. I was just surrounded by music and Christian music, and it was the dream. I was living my dream. Still, isolate, keep the pain in, don't deal with it. It's got to go somewhere. So I kept drinking. Started drinking a lot harder, and I called off a marriage that I was staying at my senior year of college. Called it off. It was a marriage of a pastor's daughter, the pastor of the church that I worked at. And I want this, because that's not the life I want. I want both. So I called it off. And that's, things started to go really solid from there.
So you had this this kind of double life for a while. You're up on Sunday doing your thing at a church, and then kind of Saturday night, so to speak, doing other things. Marriage fell through. So what happened after that?
Well, being the compulsive person that I am, I never dealt with anything, just tried to drown things, figure out where I was going. I'm senior year in college now. Really caught in this trap of drinking and promiscuity and everything that goes along with it. It's not just, you can't control sin. You think you can. Or if you want to call it sin, you want to call it weakness, whatever you turn to in your wandering. You can't control it. It's going to control you. So it opens the door to everything. So yeah, up on Sunday, it wasn't just Saturday night, it was Saturday night through Saturday night, or during the day, whenever I got the chance, I jumped right back into that relationship, the compulsive behavior, right back into it, for the wrong reasons. Never dealt with the issues, my own issues, never dealt with the issues of why we split up. It was just, let's try it again. What's the definition of insanity? Anyone know? Trying the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So, hey, let's not deal with the problems. Let's just get married. That'll fix it. Married for the wrong reasons. So I tried to fill that void this time with a relationship. I tried the sex, tried the drinking, tried church, maybe relationship, I don't think so. And I was the kind of person from grade school on, always had to be going steady. What do you call it now? Still call it going steady? Dating? All right, well, we had to go steady. Always had to have that relationship to make me feel bad. So I tried the marriage thing, and within months, my wife at that time also had her issues, and she needed to be filled and needs met. So without my knowing, birth control was stopped, and I'm a senior in college, and our first child was due. And wow, graduate, what are we gonna do? So we buy a house. I start working at the Christian school at our church as a teacher. And at this point, it's hidden what I'm doing. You know, I don't just blatantly do this. I didn't have alcohol in the house. I tried that a few times. She didn't like that, so it had to be hidden. It wasn't acceptable. So this whole lifestyle was, as you said, the two lives, living the two lives. So obviously there wasn't a lot of unity in the marriage at all. We were young, we had a child coming. I didn't like teaching. When I taught school, I did carpentry on the side, so now I'm going to fill my need with work. That'll be the solution. I'll make money now, because the other things haven't worked. I haven't given them up, but they're not working, so let's add something else to the mix. So let's work a lot. So work at the church, work in the evenings on carpentry, work on the weekends at a lumberyard, work Sunday at church, work. I'll avoid the problems at home because I just won't be there. So again, the drinking now is hidden. The drinking has to be done away from the house, or parts of the house where she doesn't go, the man cave, behind the wheel of the car. The job I did with the carpentry, I could have jobs out of town. How convenient. You know, and I can't drive home an hour after work. I probably need to just get in a hotel and stay so I can start a really nice morning. So drinking, the wheel, sexual sins, all of that goes along with just being out there. You can't control it. Whatever you decide to try to grab to fill that hole, that void is going to grab you eventually. So still involved heavily in the church. So I'm still seeking, and I think it was only God's grace that I was allowed to stay in that. If I didn't have that, I don't think I would be alive. I know I wouldn't be alive. So fortunate, never had DUIs, never had accidents. And I can't tell you how many times I'd fall out of the vehicle to crawl into the house, not knowing how to get home. So God spared all of that from me. Things just progressed, they got worse. I did all of this. So drinking hasn't worked, it doesn't numb the pain, but I'm stuck in it now. Promiscuity didn't work, but I'm stuck in that, and I was very unfaithful during that relationship. Work didn't work, it didn't fill that need. Church didn't fill that need. Let's try to move. That's it. We'll move. So 7 houses, 4 churches later, all in about a 3-year period, I've covered the majority of the state of Illinois, and I'm right back to the same church I started at, in a different house. The problem is everywhere I went, new job, new house, new church, I was still there. And I never dealt with me, ever. Somehow God kept in touch. He kept using me through this mess. The song I sang during the offering, I wrote that in the middle of all this mess. So the heart cries always for that to be filled. But the avenue is always outside. Something outside has to meet that need. I've got to find it. I know it's out there.
Earlier, I said, if we're always searching for what we don't have, then we'll never find it. So I'm like, did a lot of searching, a lot of trying to fill different things. What, at the heart of it, what were you searching for?
A couple of things. Who am I? What's my place here? in this messed up world. And in the messed up world, find an ounce of serenity or peace. And it was one of the main things I was looking for. Then after I dabbled for the first few times in drinking or whatever, then the search became, I need relief from the pain. Well, the pain I caused, the shame I caused. Step back way early in life, but I did forget to mention I was molested at age 7 by a friend. And so I did carry all of that shame. I never dealt with that, and then add that to the rejection, making fun of, never dealt with that. So this is the path, that I chose to try to numb all of that pain. I couldn't cope. I didn't have coping skills. I wasn't taught that. So all this pain, all this shame, all this confusion, who am I, where am I, what's going on? There's got to be an answer out there. And I just kept searching and searching. The problem is it becomes that vicious cycle. I would grab drink or a relationship or something to fill the need. It wouldn't work, and then I'd wake up, more pain, more shame. I need to get rid of that pain. Let's grab something else. You said earlier, more of this then, or add this to it. With my behavior, I do thank God that drugs were not in there, because I'm very compulsive, and if that would have been the route, I know I wouldn't be here today. I know that. But it's just that vicious cycle to try to find that serenity, try to find that answer. And it wasn't out there at all. Things just progressed. They just got worse and worse. That first marriage, I almost lost that marriage to one of the affairs, and I fessed up. I need to clear the air here. And it was a situation where it was going to become public anyway, and I wanted to become free. So I opened up to the truth, and we worked through things, so we thought. Went to counseling, worked through it. Neither of us dealt with the pain inside. And I did stop drinking long enough to fix that relationship. I had enough willpower and sense about me to do that. But once it started to smooth out and we didn't talk about it again, right back out even worse. And that's the thing. You stop and you run away from it, and you get help, or you confide in somebody and break away from that wandering for a while. If you think you're going to go back out and start back at the beginning, you're not. You're going to start back where you left off, or worse. It's right there waiting. Whatever your wandering is waiting. So it got worse and worse.
So things go from bad to okay to worse. Life kind of hits the rock bottom, so to speak. Take us to that point, and what happened then?
The normal person, that would have been enough to deal with all that, but I didn't. I kept going. And, while I'm out gallivanting across the whole state with my business trips and drinking, messing around, a boyfriend comes along to my spouse, and our marriage ends. Can't blame her nor him. It ended. Again, normal person, this would have been enough. I mean, high tolerance of pain. I can shove a lot of stuff down inside. Just keep it down there. So the marriage ends, and for some strange reason, I'm left with 3 children. So I should have been just thrilled. Single father now, that painful, somewhat emotionally abusive relationship is over, even though I was a perpetrator as well, and I've got a fresh start. I moved back up around here, moved to Seneca where my family's at, with my children. While mom's doing her thing now. So I started drinking more, and I started drinking openly now. I have no reason to hide it now. And I remember sitting my children down explaining what Daddy's doing. Well, you'll see this in my hand now. Drank and bought a house in Seneca, and within 4 or 5 months after this divorce, I meet somebody and get married within a few weeks. Still had a need to be filled. Another relationship will fix that. Horrible. This is the part I don't talk about. This is a part of life that so short-lived, but yet so deep, so painful. Very abusive relationship. I was the victim. I did give up escapades at this point. I became a faithful man because I figured out that didn't hurt. That brought way too much pain. So I became very faithful to this relationship, gave it my all. Still drank. She drank. So being on the abusive end or the victimizing end of this was horrendous, emotionally, physically. We fought, we drank, we tried everything to make it work. My children got tired of it, moved away 3.5 hours. I actually helped them move. I wanted them to escape this. I wanted them out of this mess. That person and I got divorced a couple years after. 1 month later, we have that divorce reversed in court. Which means we're married again. Just couldn't put that bottle down. Nothing changed. It got worse and worse. Pain, fighting. I was physically sick to this point now every day. Physically throwing up every day from the drinking. Fully functioning, working, running a business, a company. I was not in ministry anymore this time. Did not let go of God, still knew I needed Him, but couldn't let go of these other things. My bottom was not one of these tragic stories of death or killing somebody or being arrested. My bottom was when I realized I can't stop this pain anymore. This isn't working. Gotta stop this pain somehow. My kids wouldn't come around much anymore. I don't blame them. And I stopped drinking. And I called a counselor. Met with this person in hopes that they could help me maybe drink normally or do something to fix the situation so life could just go on. He looked at me and said, "You've got problems. You have issues. We need to get rid of some of these vices so we can deal with the issues." And my journey took me to an AA meeting one night and discovered some steps that would help me. Discovered some people who made it through and were smiling, were happy, and burdens were off their shoulders. And I heard some of their stories, and they drank like me and worse, and they did worse than me. And they're sitting there happy. That marriage ended its second time because I sobered up. So now we're back to dealing with rejection. This time, we dealt with it. She walked away for the drinking lifestyle, clearly told me that sobriety was not something she desired. And I stood my ground, and I dealt with it. For the first time in life, I faced the pain. I had a great support system. Parents, my children started to come back around. I didn't tell my kids I quit drinking. I didn't tell my kids that that marriage ended until a month or two later. They came up for a weekend visit and I said, "Can I ask you guys a question? You notice anything different about me? And you don't yell anymore. I don't hear you cuss anymore around us. You're fun and nice." I said, "You know why?" "Yeah, Daddy, quit drinking." Couldn't hide it. They knew right away something had changed. I began through the program of AA and through getting really back into church for the right reasons. I began to know myself and get to know God in a new way, very slowly. Because as you've heard my story, I'm very stubborn. But very slowly began to learn and know Him and myself in a different way.
slow process out of the pit.
For me, very slow process.
When Moses was speaking to God through the burning bush, communicating back and forth, God commissioned Moses to do this great work. And Moses said, well, who should I say sent me? What's your name? And God said, I am. What does that name, I am, mean for you now?
Before, it meant I'm a mess. I am my own worst enemy. I am the cause of all my problems. Now it means I am whatever you're looking for. I was trying to fill an inside need with an outside source. It can't happen. I tried everything. Didn't work. It needed to come from within, not myself, spiritually from within. And I began to, as slowly as I could, in small steps, trust. For me, trust was a huge issue, still is. Why? Because I've never been able to trust myself. Give me an inch, I'm gone. So not being able to trust myself was very difficult to trust a God I couldn't see. The Bible says, how can you love God when you can't love your brother who you can see? How can I love God when I don't love myself, who I see every day? So it was a slow process of beginning to just turn over and trust the little ways I could. Trust you to wake me up tomorrow. Trust that food will be on the table. Little things I couldn't get. Just dive into the whole, trust you for everything. Even though my obsessive compulsive disorder wanted to just jump in and say, give it all. I tried that in every other way. It didn't work. I wanted to take this as slow as possible and build up naturally. So I had to begin to learn that he wanted to be everything for me. He wanted to be, I am that what you're looking for. I met an old high school friend at our class reunion after I sobered up. And this person wouldn't have given me the time of day if I'd have been a year prior to that, or 2 years prior to that. As it was, we became good friends again. And slowly this time, under the direction of my counselor and my sponsor, and the support of the group, that friendship developed into a relationship. And I'm blessed. I have Michelle in my life. Kids are back in my life. They're teenagers, so it's what they want to be, but they are back there. Stayed active in the program of AA. I started to challenge, my faith. Why do I believe what I believe? Is it just because I was raised that way? It was a good challenge. It was God shaking things up and wanting me to know Him for Him. And so, went through a job change was a blessing. God brought that in my life for about a 3-year period, really helped me financially. The company closed its doors in 2010. I made it through that. I dealt with it, dealt with the pain, the grieving, all of that, lost. And He had the next career just waiting for me. And took a phone call to substitute or fill in music for a couple days a week at a school that needed a music teacher. I'll give this a shot. The pay was about half what I could make in a day of carpentry. That's a couple of years ago. Give it a shot. And out of that, saying yes to that, I do 4 days a week music. I am active in many churches now, including here. All of these calls came through that connection of saying yes to that job, and I couldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done it in my previous state of mind, because that would have hindered my wandering. And now I choose to find things that help keep me from wandering, help keep me connected to the source. Trust, as I said, is still a daily battle for me. I wish I could tell you I was one of those miraculous conversions. I know some of those people. I've seen the stories. It does happen. There's a saying in AA that says, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it will always materialize if you work for it. I'm one of those slow cases, and that's all right. For the first time in life, I've slowed down and let something build naturally. Let it build brick by brick instead of just give me the whole thing, dump it on me. Because that's what my personality likes to do. This much is good, this much is better. This time, a little. I work a good program for AA, but I also work a good spiritual program. And it is a spiritual program. It's completely based on the Bible. But in addition to that, I work a good spiritual program with people around me, not even connected to addiction, just good people. Pastor here, pastor at church in Morris, different people. I do these things so I don't isolate anymore. I do these things so I don't bottle up feelings anymore, so I don't let my emotions run, and I begin to trust in other things. I can recognize it now. The minute I start to turn and feel a need and start to look elsewhere, I stop and ask myself, what are you looking for? And that God wants to be that. If you're looking for, I'm looking for peace at that moment, He wants to be that peace. I'm looking for acceptance, He wants to be that acceptance. I'm looking for love, He wants to be that love. And I challenge myself now, before I run somewhere else, to fill that need. Sometimes that requires a phone call. Sometimes it requires running to a meeting. It's fine. Call it a crutch. I don't care. It's Him. I'm leaning on Him. So I know He wants to be, I am that for you. I am that which you are looking for.
Wow. I'm sure that there are others, and I think you guys are hanging with us. I'm sure there's somebody out there, at least there's somebody up on stage, that we all wander. We all try and fill that God-shaped void with something. It's still a work in progress, right? That's the way life is. But at least being headed the right direction now, what advice would you give to somebody who is wandering, who's trying to fill that hole in their life with something?
First is, we always say that the grass is greener on the other side. I think it's greener because it's fertilized by a bunch of bulls. Watch where you step. Watch where you step. Speaking of steps, my advice is small steps. Small little baby steps of trust. You may be like I was, and you have a tough time with trust. Trusting somebody else, and trusting something outside of yourself that you think you're in control of it or not. I wasn't ever in control of any of those things I lived through. So small steps of trust. And if you have a problem trusting, then you ask for help to trust. I learned that. I may not have the willingness. Pray for the willingness. I may not have the trust. Pray for the trust. I may not have the direction. Pray for the direction. And that was the first step. Was I don't understand. I don't know. I don't trust you. Not because of you, because of me. But help me to trust you. Help me to surrender. And that's really what it came down to for me, was surrender. I didn't have to give up any of those things to learn to surrender. I just had to surrender my will. And then, as He saw fit, those things would fall away. And we have 12 steps in this particular program of AA that I'm in. Those steps are broken down simply in 3 categories. The first 3 are surrender. Recognizing there's a problem and you have a need for a Savior, and surrender. The next 5, 6 steps are all about work, getting through the emotions, dealing with things, talking with somebody, get your past out there so it's not trapped. And the last steps are daily maintenance, daily asking for help, daily staying in touch with people that can help you and that you can help. It's quite a simple program. It sounds a lot like program that God laid down for us. Recognize we're sinners, we need a Savior, accept that Savior, and then trust Him, take care of the rest. And for me, it is daily, it is a slow process, but I'm not worried about that now. I mess up, I'll mess up by going out and doing the things I used to do, thank God for that. But if I mess up and say something wrong, think wrong, begin to take a step in the wrong direction, I don't have to condemn myself now. But right back in there, know that I still need you. I still need you every day. I can't do this without you, because without you, I will be messed up or I will be dead. If I want a relationship with my wife, I can't have that relationship just by doing things for her. I'm not going to get a relationship with my wife by doing the dishes, doing the laundry, and working around the house. I'm going to get that relationship by spending time with her, getting to know her. And through the Word, the Bible, through prayer time. Even if you don't know how to pray, ask Him to teach you how to pray. Ask God to show you. Through fellowship, through church. That's how we get to know our I am and have that relationship with Him. And that's what it came down to for me. I never thought I'd be here, sharing my story sober. I never thought I'd be sober. God saw fit to use it. So you might be struggling with addiction that causes amazing amounts of shame. You might be struggling just with trying to fill that void with work, with relationship, with church, with things that in and of themselves are not bad. But when they become the solution, they become the problem. There only is one solution. And then all that other stuff falls into place. Little by little, it really does. He wants to be, and He needs to be the solution. My I am, my all in all. So today's kind of about admitting we need that help, all of us, not just those that dealing with addiction. We all need help staying on the path. Recognizing that and then just surrendering that next part of your life. That's where I came to, and that's what brought me here.
Everybody wonders, right? We all have those holes in our life that only God can fill, and we try and fill them with all sorts of things. We know that if we're always searching for the next thing, the next whatever, to fill that void, it'll never be enough. But we know that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. He tells Paul that his grace is sufficient. What we're going to do is we're going to sing a song, titled Enough, a song directed to God about how He fills that void for us. If you know the song, feel free to sing along. After we finish this song, I'm going to stand up here and we'll shut off the cameras, we'll do all that stuff. And I just want to offer an invitation for anybody who feels like their life got off track somewhere. Not necessarily that you share the same struggles that Brent had, but just that in some way you wandered a little. Everybody wanders. We've all fallen short of God's glory. So after we finish this song, I'm going to be up here to pray with anybody who'd like some prayer, some support. That's what church is about, right? Supporting each other. So I encourage you to come forward after we finish this song.
All of you is more than enough for all of me, for every thirst and every need. You satisfy me with your love, and all I have in you is more than enough. You are my supply, my breath of life, still more awesome than I know. Reward worth living for, still more awesome than I your love, and all I have in you is more than enough. You're my sacrifice of greatest price, still more awesome than I know. You're the coming King, you are everything, still more awesome than I know, and all of you is more than enough for all of me, for every thirst and every need. You satisfy me with your love, and all I have in you is more than enough. More than all I want, more than all I need. You are more than enough for me. More than all I know, more than all I can see. You are more than enough for me. More than all I want, more than all I need. Yeah, you are more than enough for me. More than all I know, more than all I can see. You are more than enough, and all of you is more than enough for all of me, for every thirst and every need. You satisfy me with your love, and all I have in you is more than enough. You are more than enough. We're going to give those who would like to a chance